On today's episode, we try something brand new, and we actually let you, the audience, virtually shout out topics and words for us to expand on and talk about. So, podcast crowd work, if you will, that we're going to try for the very first time here on Tackle Talk. We also recap the recent Major League Fishing and Bassmaster events, and we examine some fishing news from around the industry, including retirements, familiar faces in new places, and more company acquisitions. All that and more in this episode of Tackle Talk.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Dance, and you're listening to Tackle Talk.
This is the Tackle Talk Podcast, brought to you by American Legacy Fishing and Outdoors, Mossy Oak, and Dakota Lithium.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Tackle Talk Podcast. We have a jam-packed show to get to today, but first we are brought to you by the great folks over at American Legacy Fishing and Outdoors. American Legacy Fishing is a great Midwestern-owned company right there in southern Indiana that carries a great selection of rods, reels, baits, line, apparel, anything that you can need for your fishing adventures. But the best part, not only do they have a great selection of new gear, they have the internet's best selection of high-quality, lightly used gear as well. So from your favorite brands, Shimano, G. Loomis, Dobbins, 13, Abu Garcia, Lew's, Fenwick, and more. Not only can you find those products brand new, but you can find them very, very lightly used to save even more money. They also have a price match guarantee on the website. They have a great American Legacy Elite program to save you even more money, 10% back on every single order, free shipping with no minimums, and so much more. All of that and more over at www.americanlegacyfishing.com. And right now, I just heard they got the brand new Shimano Vanfords, the 2024 Vanfords. We talked about at ICAST. They are available in the shop and shipping right now. So if you had your eye on those, American Legacy has you covered there too. So go check them out, www.americanlegacyfishing.com. And as always, use code TACKLETALK10. That will save you 10% off almost everything on the website. Some exclusions apply, but not many. Almost everything, 10% off with code TACKLETALK10 over at www.americanlegacyfishing.com. Alrighty, first thing up here today, really quickly, let's hit some pro fishing news that just wrapped up in the past day or two. So we're going to start with Major League Fishing, who just wrapped up Stage 7 on the St. Lawrence River with their final event of the year, which means not only is this event up for grabs, but also so is the coveted Angler of the Year award. So let's hop in here for your top 10 at Stage 7 at the St. Lawrence River for the Major League Fishing Bass Pro Tour. 10th place, Marty Robinson. 9th place, Brian Thrift. 8th place, Spencer Shuffield. 7th, Brent Ayler. 6th place, Chris Lane. 5th place, Matt Becker. 4th was Drew Gill. 3rd place, Nick Hatfield. 2nd, John Hunter. And 1st place, your Stage 7 champion, Michael Neal.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lines up. Congratulations. 2024 Stage 7 St. Lawrence River.
That's been a long time coming. This place has been special to me. I never really considered myself to be a smallmouth fisherman, especially growing up. If you caught one on Chickamauga, it was by accident in a tournament situation anyways. And I won my first Angler of the Year. I started every tournament right here where the boat's sitting when I won the first Angler of the Year, and I hadn't hit this stuff all week. Came back and caught a couple. In the end, it didn't matter, but this place will always be super special to me. It's been just a great week. Every time I set the hook, just about it's been a 3-pounder, and not a lot of places you can do that. Had 2 seconds this year. Had a really banner year besides one tournament, and that was just a bad deal. But caught them all drop shotting pretty much. Caught a few on a little finesse football jig, but sensation baits from Big Bite, put the skirt in it, and I feel like that really made a difference. I was able to fish around some guys and get a few more bites, I feel like, but other than that, really not a whole lot to it. It was using the new Gamakatsu hook for threading. I like threading a hook instead of a needle, or a nose hook, but really don't know what else to say. It's been special to win 2 tournaments, smallmouth fishing, something I never would have thought would happen once, much less twice. So I'm gonna go put this thing on the trailer and see what happens. See what we can get into tonight, maybe.
Coming up next, he's going to end up in first place. Total score of a bass, 28. Big fish, 415. He lied to me this morning. He said it was going to take over 100 pounds to win. It took 88 pounds, 14 ounces. Let's welcome up Michael Neal. Join a slight elite group of guys that have won more than one tournament, but when it comes to stage 7, you might be the king.
Yeah, it feels like everything kind of came full circle today, being able to go back to that place where I won my first trophy, which was Angler of the Year. It wasn't even a stage win or a tournament win. Just to be able to go back to that exact spot, make the exact same cast, and catch a fish in the last few minutes, it was really special.
Well, I got to tell you, I think you've waited long enough. It's been a few years. Ladies and gentlemen, he's going to grab the trophy, walk over to the center of the stage, and hoist it up. On the count of 3, make some noise for your Minn Kota Stage 7 winner, presented by Humminbird, Michael Neal!
So Michael Neal wins his second Major League Fishing Bass Pro Tour stage title, with his first coming in 2021, which was also Stage 7, the last event of the year, but that time it was at Lake St. Clair. So not only is Michael one of the most consistent anglers on the BPT, but I'd say he's also starting to get a reputation as one of the best closers in the league, finishing the year off strong with his second win in 4 years in the last event of the season. So congratulations to Michael Neal, but there's one other major honor that was still up for grabs at this event. It's a big one, the Major League Fishing Angler of the Year. Now, coming into this event, it was still a close enough race. There were a few guys still in it, realistically, that had a chance at this thing, but as the dust settled and the 2024 season came to an end, this is your official top 5 for the 2024 Major League Fishing Angler of the Year. 5th place went to Michael Neal. 4th place went to Dustin Connell. 3rd place, Alton Jones Jr. 2nd place went to Drew Gill. And 1st place, his 3rd time in 4 years that he ends up holding this trophy at the end of the season, Jacob Wheeler.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to bring up the stage the 2024 Fishing Clash Angler of the Year, Mr. Jacob Wheeler! 3 Angler of the Year titles in 4 years, and I've heard you say it before. The stage wins, the top 10s. That's one thing, but you've always been that big picture guy to really legitimize yourself in the sport.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of surreal. Every year, you try to challenge yourself, and to look back and think back of when you're 16 years old. To think where I'm at right now is just it's unbelievable. I'm beyond grateful. Not only that, but obviously the family I have and the little ones and Olivia and Hudson, Gammy Shark over there. I gotta say, Olivia was getting mad at me about that if I didn't say that. And but no, it's just been an unbelievable season, and you just can't stumble with this group of guys. They're unbelievable day in and day out. Last year I had to stumble, and I just didn't catch them. And this year I stayed consistent. I was able to keep it, as consistent as I could be, and obviously had a couple of really good wins as well. So that's what you needed to have to win Angler of the Year. I know. I always say you never know when your last win is going to be. You sure as heck never know when your last Angler of the Year is going to be, and so you have to cherish these moments because they don't come, and it takes a full year to make it happen.
Well, from here, you know the routine. Ladies and gentlemen, he's about to hoist it for the 3rd time. Put your hands together and make some noise for a 3-time Fishing Clash Angler of the Year, Jacob Wheeler!
So a very fun event on the St. Lawrence River, thousands of pounds of smallmouth bass being caught, and the crowning of 2 separate champions, one for the event itself in Michael Neal, and one for the 2024 Angler of the Year in Jacob Wheeler. A huge congratulations to both of them and the whole MLF field as they wrap up their 6th year of competition since the inception of the league, and they head into the offseason to prepare for 2025. Okay, now let's jump over to the other side of the tournament world, and the Bassmaster Elite Series just finished up their championship Monday due to a cancellation earlier in the week because of weather, so your final few days were pushed back one day over on Lake Champlain in what turned out to be a very exciting event where both largemouth and smallmouth played a big role. So we got to see a little bit of everything. Offshore livescope for smallmouth, shallow flipping, big swim bait bites, frogging for largemouth. No matter how you like to watch guys fish, somebody in this event was probably doing it. So let's pop over to the final results that just went official as we're recording this on Monday evening. Your top 10 from Lake Champlain at the Bassmaster Elite Series. 10th place, Greg DePalma. 9th place, Chris Zaldane. 8th place, Jacob Fouts. 7th went to Will Davis Jr. 6th went to Patrick Walters. 5th place, Corey Johnston. 4th place, Matt Robertson. 3rd went to Robert G. 2nd place, Chris Johnston. And 1st place, the barrister himself, Mr. Ed Lochran III.
9 down, one more angler left to go. He's a Bassmaster Classic qualifier. Made his first top 10 right here on Champlain. This is his 3rd top 10 of 2024. From Richmond, Virginia, the barrister, Edward Lochran III. Come on over, Chris. Let's get side by side. We're going to have a great champion either way. Started the day with 63 pounds and 14 ounces. Ed Lochran looking for 16 pounds and 14 ounces. 16 pounds of 14 ounces. 16, 14. He has exactly what it takes to win his very first Bassmaster Elite Series event. The barrister reigns supreme on Lake Champlain. With 80 pounds, 12 ounces, he is your champion, and we talk about it all the time. We say it could be close, it could be a tie. 1 ounce in the right direction, and you are a Bassmaster Elite Series champion. How does that feel, Ed?
That's ridiculous. This was a very weird day. Those were all smallmouth. All brown fish, and I caught several of them on a spot I've never fished before. I was going in to fish a spot. I saw some on the graph right when I dropped my trolling motor, turned around and caught a couple of them, and I can't believe that 16-14 ended up winning this thing. I was trying all day. All my largemouth spots all stopped working. I had one largemouth all day. It was terrible. And I was just hoping to stay in the top 5. So obviously it fished a lot tougher today, and this is a shock.
One more time, ladies and gentlemen. The barrister reigns supreme on Lake Champlain. The Tackle Warehouse Bassmaster Elite at Lake Champlain belongs to Ed Lochran III.
So a big congratulations to Ed, who you just heard right there. He missed the last few tournaments due to a medical condition, but awesome to see one of the older guys get it done. This is his first Bassmaster victory in over 88 total tournaments fished in a career that spans more than 30 years. So a huge congratulations to Ed Lochran as we head into the final event of the year for the Elite Series that starts this Thursday on the St. Lawrence River with the event itself, Angler of the Year, and valuable Bassmaster Classic spots all up for the taking. All right, next up here, we have some news stories from around the fishing industry that we need to talk about really quickly before we get to the meat of today's episode. The first headline comes to us from the National Professional Fishing League, and the title simply says, Ken Duke joins NPFL. So the date on this is August 6, 2024, and it says the National Professional Fishing League today announced that it has contracted with longtime industry media professional Ken Duke to lead its media and communications efforts. Duke previously served as the senior editor for BASS Publications and as managing editor of Fishing Tackle Retailer. In addition, he has authored 2 books on bass fishing and currently hosts several bass fishing podcasts, including NPFL's Roundtable. Duke's title will be Media and Communications Coordinator. Having worked with BASS, Major League Fishing, FLW, and Game and Fish magazine as a content creator and editor, Duke is excited by the prospect of contributing to the NPFL's content platforms and communications efforts. I've been watching and admiring the NPFL since it held its first tournaments in 2021, said Duke. They've come a long way in a short time and have a field of anglers that combines youth and experience, tremendous accomplishments, and great potential. NPFL has the best angler relations that I've ever witnessed and an extraordinarily talented staff. I truly admire them as people and as professionals, and I'm looking forward to contributing in any way that I can. So, first things first here, a huge congratulations to Ken Duke for his exciting new position. We are lucky enough here at Tackle Talk to call Ken a friend. He's got decades and decades of experience and knowledge in the fishing realm in a wide variety of platforms and formats and media outlets, and I'm excited to see what he is able to do with the NPFL. And I'll be honest, when the NPFL first came on the scene, I was skeptical. I was like a lot of other people that thought, what the heck is this? They had a lot of nobodies fishing it the first year or two, some financial issues, canceled tournaments, checks not cashing, or so I heard. So there were a lot of growing pains, I would say, as they kind of got up and going. But now, dude, they are cooking. They've got big names in their events. They've cleaned up a lot of those issues that seemed to be present early on. And now they're actually doing some really exciting stuff. And from the interviews that I've seen with Brad Fuller, he seems to have a clear vision for this thing and is going full steam ahead to try and make it great. And I respect it. So I've said this for a long time, even when the whole like Bass and MLF split happened. For me, more fishing is a good thing. More tournaments means more fishing to watch. So as long as the industry can support them simultaneously and they're all able to secure their own sponsorships and entry fees or whatever they need to exist, at least right now, I think I'm in the camp of the more the merrier at this point. So a huge congratulations to Ken Duke, your new media and communications coordinator for the NPFL. Okay, our next story here from around the industry is titled Platinum Equity to Acquire GSM Outdoors from Gridiron Capital. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. I'm not going to go too deep here, except it is another day and there's another change in ownership and acquisition among fishing brands. What else is new? So you're going to remember GSM is who recently bought Dobbins Rods. They already own Big Bite Baits, Bill Lewis, which makes rattle traps, Buckeye Lures, Phoenix Rods, Yamamoto, and more. And now that company, GSM, that owns all of those brands I just mentioned, just got bought by Platinum Equity from Gridiron Capital. So not a whole lot to say here, just another headline that I thought a lot of you folks that are really dialed into the fishing industry and kind of closely on the business side of things would find interesting. Okay, and the last news story we have here says Al Norker to retire as president of Cast King. So the article says here, Cast King, a leader in fishing tackle manufacturing, has announced the retirement of its president, Al Norker, who has led the company since 2022. He will step down at the end of 2024 after more than 40 years as a respected industry leader. I've been privileged to enjoy a career in an industry that I love and to make a living doing the things that I would have simply done out of passion for the sport anyway, Norker said. Tate T.S. Soy, I think I said that right, probably not, let's hope, owner of Poseidon USA, the parent company of Cast King, called Norker's retirement bittersweet news. Al has been a tremendous leader for our company, he said, and he's taken us to new heights and leaves us in great shape moving forward. We're sad to lose him, but happy to see him move on to a joyful retirement. So that's a pretty big loss for Cast King, who was making moves in the right direction recently. I mean, I made it a point when I went to ICAST this year to go over there for 20, 30 minutes one day, and I spent a ton of time playing with the Cast King reels, and they're not your Cast King reels of yesterday. They're much nicer now. I would say they're more on par with some mid-tier Bass Pro Shops reels or something like that. So definitely not near the tippy top, but not the bottom of the barrel either. The problem with Cast King now is that they have too many reels. They have too many SKUs, and they all look mismatched. It's not like there are coherent lines of reels. It just looks like a hodgepodge of a ton of different reels with no rhyme or reason to why some of them exist. And then you've got reels that look completely different from each other in like the same price point. You have competing reels that don't even look like they're made by the same company. So it's getting there, but it's not quite where you'd like to see it yet. And the loss of Al is going to be a pretty big hit to them moving forward, I would assume. But we'll see who they find to fill that spot in the near future, because it says Al is gone at the end of the year. So that's only a few months away. way. All right, everybody, that is the headlines and the news today. Now we're going to move forward to the main portion of today's episode, and we're going to try and do something that we've actually never done here before on Tackle Talk. So you guys know we have the mailbag powered by Dakota Lithium, where we answer a lot of in-depth questions and real specific situations and things like that. But today, I want to do something almost the complete opposite. So I guess the backstory here is I watch a lot of stand-up comedy, and I love it, but one of my favorite things that comedians do is when they're on stage at like a small comedy club, not a big theater where they're doing their special material or anything. This is when they're really like going around the country, working these small comedy clubs and trying out new material. A lot of them will actually take some time and let the audience just shout out topics, and then they'll riff on them for like a minute or two before moving on to the next topic. So it's a lot more spontaneous and a lot more open-ended, and the comedians can kind of take that topic that the audience shouts out wherever they want to go. So we're going to modify that a little bit today, and we're going to try that here on Tackle Talk. So I've asked Tackle Talk listeners on social media to submit random words or topics associated with fishing for this episode, and we got a ton of them in response. And I'm actually going to have an AI chatbot select them and read each topic, and then we'll talk about each of them for a few minutes before we move on. So I can kind of take these topics in any different direction that we want to go, so I think that'll be kind of fun. So what I need you guys to do is at the end of the episode, if you like or don't like this idea, I need you to tell me. I need some feedback on this. I think it's unique enough that I haven't heard any other fishing podcast try something like this yet, where they're essentially doing like crowd work, kind of like you do at a comedy show, and then turning it into an episode. Hopefully it's informative, entertaining, and unique enough that this makes a good episode here, but I want to hear from you guys at the end. So shoot me a message and tell me if you like this idea or not, if it has staying power, or if we need to scrap this and kind of move on with something different. So let's get started here. Our first topic of the day is going to be
heavy vegetation.
Okay, heavy vegetation. First off, I'm bad at it. I can frog it, I can punch it, I guess, but after that, I'm lost, and you guys know that listening to this show. So when I went down to Florida like 2 years ago to visit my parents, and my dad took me out on the boat to some of these inland Florida lakes that were just chock full of like really heavy vegetation, I learned how challenging that bite can be. Dead middle of the day, hot, muggy, sun beating down on you, and it's just weeds and pads, and not like regular pads. We're talking like pad stems that were built like freaking tree trunks. So it's crazy how thick some of that stuff can be, because around here, when we think of pads, right, you've got pretty wussy pads around here. We have some lily pads, but most of them aren't very thick. These down in Florida were like alpha pads. So if there is one thing that I would love to like go out in the boat with a pro and really learn and study hard, I think it would be really thick vegetation. I'd love to hop on like a boat with someone that knows what they're doing and watch them pick apart Okeechobee or something like that, because I just don't know what I don't know, and that's one of them, right? Heavy vegetation is something that I just don't get the chance to really practice a whole lot. Rock, I got you. Wood, I got you. Current, I got you. Points, I've got you. Ledges, I've kind of got you. Thick vegetation, not really my style, and not really a lot of help there. But speaking of heavy vegetation, I think it's also one of the most manly ways to fish. And when you do have success doing it, like throwing a big punch rig and cracking a fish right in the face into next century and horsing it out of the slop to like a picture perfect boat flip full of salad and everything, that is bass fishing. From the hook set to the scream of the braid that's like locked down on your casting reel to just the power and winching that fish into the boat, that's what it's all about. So I'm here for it. I just wish I was better at it. Okay, the next topic we have here is going to be
water conditions and weather.
Okay, water conditions and weather. Like, obviously, they relate to each other quite a bit. That's kind of an obvious thing, so I guess that's where I'm going to go here, is that weather affects water conditions a lot. But what's important to remember is that water conditions are relative to wherever you're fishing. That's not a universal spectrum when it comes to water conditions, and I know that we've talked about this at least some point in the past on this show. But the one good thing about fishing in Ohio is we have a lot of different water conditions around our area. Now, the fishing isn't good, and there's not a lot of water to practice those types of fishing on, but the water we do have is pretty diverse, especially in terms of water clarity, which I think is what goes through my mind when I hear water conditions. So we've got a few, not many, but a very few number of lakes around here that are very clear most of the year, and then you have some lakes that are stained almost all year long, and then you've got a lake or two that are just plain dirty all year long. It doesn't matter if we haven't had rain in a month, these lakes are dirty, dirty lakes. lakes. Well, what I've learned from fishing those lakes is that when you ask, for instance, like, is the water dirtied up or what's the visibility or something like that, it's a comparison to the norm, not an absolute. So in that clear lake, if my visibility is normally like 10 feet or whatever, and we get some hard rain or some wind and it changes to 3 feet of visibility, that's dirty for that lake. That has an effect on those fish because those fish are used to hunting in an environment where they can see 10 feet. That is their norm. And then going to 3 feet is a deviation from that norm. So that's dirty. So you have to treat it as such. Darker colors, more vibration, more flash, whatever you want to go with. Well, now look at that normally dirty lake. One of my favorite lakes around here probably has, I'm not even kidding you, 8 inches of visibility max. And that's if we haven't had rain in weeks or a month. Well, to those fish in that lake, 8 inches of visibility is normal. That's their baseline. That's the best conditions that they've ever known in their entire life since they were spawned and born. So they've never seen 5 feet of visibility. They don't know what that is. So then I throw natural colors in that lake with 8 inches of visibility when I wouldn't even dream of throwing natural colored baits in any of those clear lakes if they had 8 inches of visibility after a rain. So it's all relative. So water conditions should be compared to the norm for that body of water. I think 6 inches of visibility could be atrocious and blown out, or it could be great and considered clear for that body of water, depending on what it normally looks like. All right, Mr. Chatbot, let's get to the next one here. Our next topic is going to be
tackle organization.
Okay, so another thing that I suck at, but I'm getting better, I guess. If I had a boat, I think my tackle organization would be better because I'd have room for like a box for my jerk baits, a box for my deep divers, a box for square bills, a terminal box. But my problem is I either fish out of a kayak or I fish wading. So I can only bring like one box with me max anywhere I go. So instead, it ends up with me having one go-to box where I try and pack everything I could ever need into that one box. So in that box, I've got to have spinner baits, chatter baits, square bills, deep divers, hooks, weights, blade baits, swim baits, jerk baits, buzz baits, poppers, prop baits, spooks, frogs, jigs, like everything that you could need, I'm trying to cram into one box. And then I have one zip bag that I try and pack all my plastics into. So in that one bag, I got to try and fit Senkos, craws, swim baits, flukes, Ned baits, beaver baits, regular creature baits, grubs, finesse worms, anything that I could need on the soft plastic side has to try and fit into that one speed bag as well. So all of that into one Plano box and one zip up speed bag is tough to do. So that means my organization is an absolute mess. And my system right now is basically shove everything that I can into my dry bag that I use as a backpack. And then when I get to the water, I open up my Plano box and my bag of plastics and I pull out everything that I think I'm going to be throwing at some point that day. And I put it in like one of those lure trays off to the side of my kayak or like a little storage spot in my kayak or something for easy access. So everything else that I don't think I'm going to use that day goes back into the bag and behind me until I need it. And that's a system that's been working for me right now. But again, I am unorganized because of necessity. It's just how it's always been for me. Now, if I had a 2024 Skeeter with 12 different compartments to keep everything that I could ever need organized and in its place, I'd probably do that. But I'm not in a 2024 Skeeter. I'm in a 12-foot piece of plastic with a dry bag behind me. So organization for me, definitely not ideal. All right, the next topic we have here is going to be
Livescope.
Oh no, here we go. If you didn't think this was going to come up in the first time we ever did this type of episode, you were probably mistaken. So what I'm going to say here is I know this might have been submitted as a joke and like a har from someone that listens to this show and knows I don't want to talk about it, but you guys know by now when everybody else zigs, we here at Tackle Talk try to zag. So last year when every single show and podcast and pro on their Instagram Live or their TikTok Reels or whatever people were doing was talking about the forward-facing sonar debate and trying to stay relevant and drive engagement or whatever, we didn't do that. You would tune in to this show when the entire industry is talking about forward-facing sonar. You would hear an episode here talking about like top 10 frog fishing tips or something. That's because I have absolutely no interest in being a drama show here at Tackle Talk. If you want drama or rumors or confrontation or something like that, go listen to one of the other shows that's out there. There's quite a few of them you can go to that will feed that monster Bassmaster, but we're not going to do it here at Tackle Talk. Now, that's not to say that we can't ever talk about Livescope or it won't ever come up in conversation, because it can come up if it's going to be educational to you as an angler. So we've talked about like the new Lowrance beginner unit that's coming out. I mean, I own Livescope for my own kayak, and I mean, I'm trying to learn it just so that I can be educated enough to have conversations about it and feel like I have enough information to form valid opinions on, what this stuff is, what we can learn from it, from fish behavior, and that kind of stuff. But this is not going to be a show where we focus heavily on forward-facing sonar, because 99% of you that listen to this show don't have it or don't use it regularly. So it would make no sense for me to form our content around a piece of technology just to try and get numbers and clicks and stuff when most of our listeners don't have that and it's not relevant to you. Clicks mean nothing to me here. I want to give you guys information that's relevant and entertaining to the way that you fish. And for most of us, the way we fish is still the good old-fashioned regular type of fishing. So until that changes someday down the road, we are never going to be like a Livescope heavy type show. All right, our next topic here is going to be
weightless baits like the Yamatanuki.
I guess the first thing I think of when I hear that is that I think this is a route that baits are going to go more to. I think this is a trend that has some real staying power, is weighted soft plastics, where the weight is the soft plastic. I know we've already had some come out, some heavily salted baits, things like that, but I'm excited for this category of baits that take the place of like a super light Texas rig, like the new BSC that came out from Big Bite Baits. That's got a ton of weight to it. Obviously the Yamatanuki, and now coming out the Yamamoto Nuki Bug. That came out at ICAST this past year, so I'm excited to see how that goes. Heavy poop baits and things like that. So I'm excited for it. Hopefully we see more of this type of bait, because I do think it is something that can fill a niche for a lot of people, and it is at least kind of fun to explore how you can get some different fall rates, some different actions, and really do without traditional weights when you want a very slow fall that maybe your plastic can do for you, where you don't need lead or tungsten or things like that. So I hope more companies go down this road, because it is an exciting sort of deviation from the norm in soft plastics. All right, everybody, we'll get back to the episode here in just a second, but first we are brought to you in part by Mossy Oak. Now, I know when you think Mossy Oak, you probably think camouflage, you probably think hunting season, and while it is true that Mossy Oak makes some of the best proprietary camouflage patterns in the outdoors industry, they also make some of the sharpest patterns for on-the-water clothing as well. With awesome patterns like hailstone, Arctic ice, high seas, and more, you can look and feel like a pro out there on the water with Mossy Oak fishing apparel. Between their long sleeve and their short sleeve tech shirts featuring their signature Hydroplex technology, built-in microfiber patches for cleaning your sunglasses, and UPF sun protection, to their fishing shorts and casual wear, they've got something for everybody. There's a reason why so many pros like Kevin Van Dam, Hank Parker, Gerald Swindle, Ott Defo, and more choose Mossy Oak. And you can too. All you have to do is go over to www.store.mossyoak.com and click fishing at the top of the homepage to get started. Again, that's www.store.mossyoak.com. Trust the best with Mossy Oak. All right, hit me with the next one here. What's our next topic?
Pelagic.
I think I know what this is. At least when I hear that word, I think it's a fishing clothing company. And not just any company. I think this is the company where when you go to like a trade show or ICAST or something, they have like their half naked girl models that are out there trying to sell you saltwater shirts and shorts and things like that. It's lazy marketing, not my style. Definitely not a company that I frequently buy from and or even pay attention to. All right, next topic here is going to be
Fizzing fish.
This is something that I wish I knew a darn thing about. I wish I knew how to fizz fish. I wish I knew what to do and what not to do. I just really don't, because we don't have deep enough water around here to ever worry about it. So it's not something that I've ever had to do. Our lakes around here, I don't know, they're maybe 20-foot deep max in most of the places we fish. So I've never had a situation present itself where I really need to fizz a fish. But I do really appreciate that it's something that we're now trying to make more well-known, and we're educating regular anglers about it. As technology gets better, as we unlock different deeper parts of lakes, it's nice that we're able to do our part and take care of those fish that we catch from so deep. So to fizz that swim bladder, if you don't know what that is, basically I think you have this like big hypodermic needle and you poke a hole in their swim bladder, and then that lets that air out. So when you let that fish go that you caught from so deep, it doesn't just immediately float and roll over and has a hard time swimming back down. You drain that swim bladder so that fish can swim straight back down to wherever it came from. Very cool. It's almost like minor fish surgery sort of thing. It looks really intimidating when you see somebody do it with a big needle and they just stick it right in this fish, but it is something that we need to do to make sure that you're taking care of those deep fish that you're catching and that they swim away strong. So yeah, I think it's really cool, just not something that I've ever had to do personally. Okay, what's next here?
Best budget sunglasses.
I'm definitely not an expert on budget sunglasses. If you look at any of my pictures, you'll know that I don't wear sunglasses very often. I do for certain occasions, if I'm bed fishing, if I'm creek hopping and the water's super low and I need to be able to see, where I might be spooking fish or things like that. But for the most part, I'm just not a big sunglasses guy. With that being said, my favorite pair of bed fishing sunglasses that I own that was fairly cheap was from a company called Flying Fisherman. And they were like $30 or so. They've got amber lenses in them. So not only a budget pair of sunglasses, but a straight up dirt cheap pair of sunglasses in today's day and age in fishing sunglasses. Nowadays, fishing sunglasses are going to run you $100, $150, $200, and that's before you even get into Costa and Bahio and things like that. So my $30 pair works pretty well for me. I also used my buddy's Hobies. They have Hobie eyewear that were Bailey's. Shout out Bailey for letting me use those when I went up to New York. They were great as well. Again, I think they're a little bit more expensive than Flying Fisherman, but not like, again, a Costa or Bahio or something like that. But again, I just don't wear sunglasses a whole lot. I hate the way they feel on my face. I like to see normally. I've just never found a pair that I thought was really, really comfortable. All right, let's move on to the next one, which is going to be
fall.
First thought when I hear fall and fall fishing is just get out and fish. Don't think about it too much. Just go out and make sure you are casting, make sure you are putting baits in the water, because it is the best time of the year around here by far, both in terms of number of fish and bigs, because the fish around here, they're fat, they're sassy, mean, hungry, and they're out there chasing every single day. So my hardest demon to fight when it comes to fall, though, is deer hunting, because I got into deer hunting like 5 or 6 years ago, and it's so hard for me when I go to bed that night to choose what I'm going to do the next day. Am I going to go fishing or am I going to go hunting? Part of me, that little devil on my shoulder, says you should go deer hunting because there's only one time of year that you legally can go deer hunting, so you should take advantage of it. But the other one on my other shoulder says you should be out fishing, and that's what happens every single time that I say I choose to go deer hunting. I'm sitting in the stand. If I don't see a deer, the first thing I'm thinking of is, man, I should have went fishing today. I'd be smoking them. And the same thing happens. I could be in my kayak, I could have a lull or something out there on the water, or I could just see a deer on the bank or something. I should say, you know what? I should be in the woods right now. What am I doing? So it's that classic Midwest conundrum to fish or to hunt on a fall day. All right, next up here we've got
flukes.
Man, I am not a huge fluke guy. I throw them every once in a while. I know I should throw them more often, but my friends have been doing some killer stuff with flukes lately, and I've been resisting because it's kind of their thing. It's their bite that they've sort of figured out. But again, the devil on my shoulder has been telling me that I should pick up a fluke more often, and I probably will here soon. All right, chatbot, next topic we have is
delayed mortality.
Ooh, this is a good one. This is something that I wish that we as anglers understood better. And I know that we have a lot of stories and a lot of he said, she said about the true impact of delayed mortality and how to best minimize that fish's chance of dying later. But I really want to know the percentages, like how many of those fish we release die eventually based on how and where they were caught. So like, how long can they safely be handled? How much stress can they endure? How do temperatures and depth affect that timeline? I know that all fish are different. I know every situation is different, but I wish I understood more of the extent of the damage that we either do or don't do to these fish in certain situations. Like, I know that I catch one, I take a picture of it, I let it go. Okay, that fish is fine. There's no worries there. But what happens when you catch one in 83-degree water, you box it in your live well for 4 4 hours. You run across the lake 3 times. You put it in a bag, put it on a scale, you weigh it in, and then you dump it 10 miles from where it lives. A big part of those fish, I'm sure, are fine, and we know that because those fish have been caught multiple times years later. But some of those that obviously weren't caught years later probably were subject to delayed mortality. They were alive when you let them go at the ramp, but that doesn't mean that that fish lives. That fish could die a couple hours later. That fish could die a couple days later. I'm sure we do that. I'm sure in tournaments especially, there's a lot of delayed mortality that we just don't know about and we're kind of blissfully unaware of. But again, I wish we understood more of that because I have a feeling we do end up killing more fish than we think we do. It's just a matter of how many it actually is. All right, the next topic here is going to be
tournaments.
Oh, there you go. That one relates pretty well to the last topic we just had. Again, a pretty vague and wide open topic here. So I'm going to go down the road of why I enjoy watching tournaments. I think that's a fun angle for tournaments to explore. Why do I personally enjoy watching Bass Live or Major League Fishing when I could watch something else? I like watching tournaments, I think anyway, for the same reason that I would enjoy listening to a fishing podcast or the same reason that I would watch fishing YouTube videos. It's to try and find some little bit of information that I can use the next time I'm on the water. So you're getting to watch some of the best anglers in the world do the exact same thing that you're going to do on the weekend, and you get to look at it live and unfiltered. So sure, electronics are always going to be a part of it. So if you do have Livescope in your boat or Mega Live or Active Target or whatever, you should be paying attention like a hawk every single time they show one of those picture-in-picture screens where the guy is fishing and you see a live view of his sonar. Look at what he's doing. Look at what his settings are at. Look at how he's presenting his bait, his sink rate, his cadence. How far away is he positioned from those fish? Soak it in because you're watching a masterclass in real time on fish catching. So pay attention and study it when you get those great peeks into the mind of some of the best anglers in the country. But more importantly, this goes for people that are fishing without sonar too. Watch how the angler is flipping. Watch how they set the hook in certain situations, how they play a fish and how they land it. That's something that's helped me a lot. I've really watched these guys fight their fish, which in some cases are worth tens of thousands of dollars to them. So you can bet your tail they're doing everything they can not to lose that fish once it's hooked. So I'm watching these guys to see how often they're switching directions of that fish, for instance. And a hint, they're not doing it very often. I'm also watching them, work their drag and when they tighten, when they loosen. I'm watching how often they let that fish run versus horsing a little bit more. You can learn a lot by just watching their techniques. So yes, you can watch them catch fish and see the weights and the competitive side and watch it as a sport, and that's fine. But to me, I think I like watching them more so for how they're fishing and those little quirks that make each angler unique, and then how I can apply that when I'm out on the water. All right, the next topic here is going to be
the bilge.
Oh, okay. If you're talking about the part on your boat, like the lowest part of your boat, I think it is, then you have a bilge pump that pumps water out of there. Obviously, that is an important part of a boat if you have a boat. But if you're talking about the podcast, which I'm guessing you probably are, it's not my cup of tea. All right, the next thing we have here is going to be
wood fishing.
We've done whole episodes on wood fishing before and tips and tricks to help you, like big glide baits are one of the best ways to draw fish out of thick wood, but I'll give you another one here. Don't be afraid to throw square bills around wood. Square bills deflect so well that throwing them in and around wood and laydowns isn't as big of an issue as you would think it would be. When you see a square bill, obviously you see 2 trebles, you see 9 dangling hooks, and you say, yeah, I probably wouldn't throw that up in that laydown, but they do surprisingly well in them. Square bills are made not only to deflect off of rock and hard structure and stuff, but wood too. Now, I probably wouldn't throw them up in like a huge tangly root ball or something, maybe not, I don't know, depends on the situation. But for logs, stumps, fallen trees, things like that don't have 10,000 small little twigs sticking off of them, that more thicker hardwood type stuff, square bills are a great move. All right, the next topic here is going to be
line management.
Okay, line management is interesting. My brain, for some reason, immediately goes to line conditioner. So that stuff that you see in the bottle, like the KVD line conditioner, stuff they sell in stores and tell you to spray on your fluoro or whatever to make it cast like a breeze. To me, I don't think that stuff makes a difference at all. I think if you want to manage your line, the best things you can do, I would say to probably start with how you store your line. So store it clean on your reels. That means if you're frogging and you've got a bunch of weeds or cottonwood on your braid or whatever, before you put that rod up, make one final cast and then run that braid through your fingers as you reel it in to push all that gunk and cottonwood up to the very end of your line, and then pick all that off before you put the reel up for the day. Same thing with dirt and mud too. I would say maybe that means running some water over your reel spool before you put it up for the day to get that dirt and that mud off of that line. Reels can get wet. That's another thing people think. They're like, oh, I can't get my reel wet. Yes, you can. You can get your reel wet. Now, they're not all completely waterproof. So yeah, maybe you don't want to submerge it underwater for 7 days in a row, but you can certainly spray fresh water on that reel to clean it. So give it a rinse if it's super dirty. That way you're storing that line cleaner and not caked up with all kind of gunk on it for, days or weeks at a time. The other thing I like to do is make sure that I go out and I cast that line at least once or twice every, couple weeks or something, especially if it's a combo that you don't use very often. Just go outside, make a cast or two in your yard with it every couple weeks to reset that line on that spool. So if I keep fluoro locked down on a spool for, 6 months or a year at a time without throwing it, that memory gets insane regardless of what brand you're using. It doesn't matter. It could be, Red Label or Tatsu. It doesn't matter, right? It's going to have memory in it if you keep it in the exact same situation, tight on that reel without ever letting it move for months at a time. So let it breathe every once in a while. Go out, cast your combos if you haven't used them, and give them a minute to reset with that line. All right, the next topic here we've got is going to be
flip-proof kayaks.
Okay, first thing I would say is there is definitely no such thing as a flip-proof kayak. So we'll start there. Any kayak can flip. Now it's just a matter of how easy does that kayak flip. Now, a sit-in kayak with a V-shaped hull is going to flip way easier than most fishing kayaks that are sit-on top. But even there are going to be some differences to keep in mind with your sit-on tops. So let's take like my old kayak, for instance, I had a few years ago, which was a Feel Free Lure 10. That kayak was borderline impossible to flip. You still could, but it was this like tri-hull system underneath it. It was like a modified pontoon almost shape underneath of it versus a true single V-hull. And that adds way more stability, makes it way more difficult to tip. I could walk around in that kayak. I could do all kinds of stuff. That was probably the most stable kayak that I've ever used. So then from there, I went to an Old Town PDL, which had sort of a tri-hull bottom still. So it was still very stable, but it was a little bit more wobbly than the Feel Free because the bottom was a little shallower and a little flatter. But it was also faster than the Feel Free because of that. And then I went to my current Hobie, which is a little bit tippier, I would say, than the other two. A little bit more of a sleek V-shaped bottom to it, but it's also a rocket compared to the other two in terms of maneuverability and speed. So that's what you trade a lot of times when you're talking about this kind of stuff. Speed versus stability. Your stable hulls will often be slower and your tippier hulls are often going to be faster. It just depends on what you want. But I would say there's no such thing as a flip-proof kayak. If you're going to be an idiot, you can flip almost any kayak out there. It's just a matter of how stable is it. All right, next up on the list here from the chat bot, we've got...
Do we really want the sport to grow more?
Oh boy. All right. This is a spicy one, and I think I probably have an interesting take on this. So I have got in many a heated conversations with my friends and my colleagues around the fishing world about this because I do think I have a very different take than most people. Most people in the fishing industry, like for instance, if you walked around ICAST last month and you said, hey, do you want the sport to grow? Every single person in that room is going to say yes, because more people fishing means more people buying fishing gear. And almost everybody has a vested vested interest in the fishing industry selling more product. Even your influencers, quote unquote, or your YouTubers or whatever, they want more product to sell, because if companies are selling more product, more companies are growing, new companies are emerging, and that's more companies for them to potentially work with and get sponsorship deals or free products or whatever. And if the sport continues to grow, that means more people and more eyeballs to watch fishing content, which then in turn is great for this whole generation of people that all want to be internet famous and get this recognition from strangers and stuff like that. I, on the other hand, don't think this is such a cut and dry issue for true diehard anglers. So I've said this part to my friends a million times. When it comes to my life in fishing, the actual fishing part is what matters to me more than anything else. Catching fish matters more to me than being able to watch my favorite fishing shows. It matters more to me than new gear coming out or whatever. Catching fish to me matters more than this show does. Even though I've dedicated the past 5 years of my life to this show, fishing and catching fish, the actual activity, matter more to me than all of it. At the end of the day, I am an angler. I don't care about recognition. I don't care about photos or videos or trophies, tournaments or whatever. I want to catch fish. Catching bass, both largemouth and smallmouth, the bite, the hook set, the fight, holding a fish at the end of the fight is what matters to me more than anything else. So I'm conflicted sometimes, because there's a part of me deep down, if I'm being honest, that doesn't want the sport to grow, because that means more people competing with me for the same fish and straining our limited resources around here. Now, if I lived on a big lake with a huge healthy population, fine, whatever, but even then, I would make the argument that you're going to have your favorite fishing spots, your favorite areas, these fish that you might have found a week ago that you've really got patterned pretty well, and you don't want to show up in the morning and there already be 50 people in that one spot that you want to fish. I think we can all agree that we would rather live in a world where when you show up to your favorite fishing spot, there's nobody there versus if there were 50 people there. So in that instance, I think if we're all being honest, there's a part of us deep down that doesn't want the sport to grow, because we want to protect our fish, protect our spots, protect our chances for success. So less anglers means less crowded water, less competition, and a better chance of success for us out there on the water. And then when you factor in the fact that I'm a small water guy at heart, so all it takes is 1 to 2 people to ruin productive water. I know that's hard for some people to comprehend, and they say, no, that's not true. There's way more fish in there than you think. No, there's not. I'm fishing in places where there aren't an unlimited supply of fish. A 200-yard stretch where I fish that I've got dialed in for a certain week of the year or something might only have, 30 fish in it or something like that. So then if someone comes in and keeps 5 fish a day, it only takes a week for that spot to be completely ruined for years. Not just until the fish replenish. Those fish they were catching, if they're catching, 18, 19, 20-inch smallmouth, those are 18-year-old fish or whatever they are. That doesn't change overnight and replenish. So that's why I'm so protective of my water. That's why you'll never see me posting YouTube videos where I have some GoPro strapped to my chest showing people where I'm fishing. That's also why if you email me and you ask any questions, I will try and help you until the cows come home. But the one thing that I won't help you with is fishing spots. If you email me and ask me about fishing spots, you will get ignored. That's just the plain facts of it. That's why I started an audio-only fishing show, so that I could hopefully do some good and something cool in fishing while never showing anybody or ruining any of my water or my productive areas, and respecting not only the fish that are there, but also other anglers that have put in the work to find those spots and fish them just like I have. They're not just my spots, they're other people's spots too. So I am not going to spoon feed that information to the entire internet. So I know that's a long answer, but I do think it's a gray area. It's something that's not as black and white as we think it is. Do you want the sport to grow? Most people automatically say yes, but if you're a true outsider and you just like fishing and fishing is your number one priority, and you don't have some sort of allegiance to the industry as a whole, maybe deep down the answer is no. So it's just something to think about there. All right, everybody, we'll get back to the episode here in just a second, but first we are brought to you in part by Dakota Lithium Batteries. And not only is the mailbag powered by Dakota Lithium, but this entire podcast is powered by Dakota Lithium. My kayak motor is powered by Dakota Lithium. My electronics are powered by Dakota Lithium. There's only one battery that I trust with my precious time, my safety, and my success out there on the water. That iconic blue battery with the red top. You know it from a mile away. They're just the best in the business. That's because Dakota Lithium batteries are twice the power of traditional batteries at half the weight. They charge up to 5 times faster. They last up to 4 times longer. They have 100% US-based customer support, and they come with a whopping 11-year warranty on all of their batteries standard. So whether you need a 10 amp hour or a 100 amp hour, whether you need 12 volt, 24 volt, 36 volt, the boys at Dakota Lithium have you covered. And because you listen to Tackle Talk, you can use code TACKLETALK5 to save 5% off your entire purchase. That helps them know that we sent you, and it saves you money on your next battery purchase. Again, that's code TACKLETALK5 over at www.dakotalithium.com, the official lithium battery of Bassmaster. All right, the next topic we have here is going to be
BFS replacing spinning setups.
Oh boy, I know there are going to be some BFS guys out there that are going to hate me for saying this, but when I hear that, there's only one word that comes to mind when I just heard that, and it is no. It's not. It's a cool alternative. Sure, BFS is kind of a cool quirk that you can go out and fish and change things up, but it's not going to replace spinning gear ever. Take that to the bank, deposit it, put a future on it, whatever. BFS is not going to replace spinning gear ever. Go watch the pros right now on like the St. Lawrence River. They're not out there throwing drop shots on BFS gear. They're not throwing Demiki rigs on BFS gear. It's still spinning gear. So I think BFS is just a cool wrinkle. It's a cool niche. It's a fun way to fish, but no, I don't think it's ever going to replace spinning gear. All right, let's go to our next topic here.
John Boats.
Okay, I've always said that I'm probably never going to own a boat, and I still stick by that. It just doesn't make sense around here where I live and where I fish, but if I did, I would want to trick out a John boat. If I had the time and I had the money, one of the most fun projects I think anybody could ever do would be to buy some $100 beat up, I don't know, sea nymph or something off a Facebook Marketplace and turn it into a completely awesome, tricked out like John boat with storage and deck mats and lighting and that kind of stuff, and just make it look sick. I love stuff like that, the before and after photos. I should have never joined Tiny Boat Nation or whatever it's called on Facebook, because all that does is make me go to Facebook Marketplace, look for really cheap John boats to fix up. It would just be so cool to take a turd, polish it, and make it absolutely a sick fish catching machine. But to do that, you need enough time, you need enough money, both of which I have neither of. So that is a pipe dream that will probably have to wait. All right, moving on here, our next topic is going to be
Humminbird versus Garmin.
Okay, so really simply on this one, I think Humminbird wins on mapping and side imaging, and then Garmin wins on live sonar, so that means forward, down, and perspective mode. So in a perfect world, if I had a boat set up, I would probably have Humminbird for my 2D and my side imaging and my mapping, and then if you're going to use live sonar, I would get a Garmin unit for that, so I would run both at the same time. Now with that being said, I've actually been really impressed with my Garmin side imaging as of late. So I even have the old transducer. I've got a GT54. Now they've got a GT56 out. That GT54 is a great unit. I get a clear picture, and it's all I need. Even better, I'm going to toot Garmin's horn here for a second. So my GT54 transducer broke like a month ago. It completely bit the bullet. Nothing that I did. It just died. I was out on the water one day, and then half of my side imaging completely went black, and then the other half was running so hot that all you could see was a solid color. That was it. And I tried all my settings. I reset everything, checked my voltage, all kinds of stuff. Everything was fine. The unit just completely went out. So I called Garmin. A real human picked up the phone. He asked me what was wrong with it. I described it to him in a couple seconds, what was happening, and he said, yep, that checks out. Your transducer went bad. And then he immediately set me up with a new one and a return envelope to send my old one back to. So it was absolutely painless. It was a breath of fresh air from a customer service side. Obviously, I have no relationship with Garmin. I bought both of my units with my own money, but I'm just sharing with you a positive experience that I had with their customer service. I can't speak to Humminbird's customer service because I never had to use it when I had Humminbird, but kind of hats off to Garmin there. But both of them have their time and place. It just depends on what you're looking for. All right, our next topic here is going to be
Mike Iaconelli.
Well, this is a timely one, I would say, considering that Mike just had a great first day on the Bassmaster Elite Series at Lake Champlain, where we got to see old Mike Iaconelli again. He was catching tanks. He was screaming so loud that someone literally came out of their house on one of the fish catches and asked if he was okay. So I know a lot of people feel a certain way about Ike. There's a lot of different opinions out there, obviously, but I think jacked up Ike, like catching pigs and shaking because he's so excited and screaming like a maniac, I think that's good for fishing. I have absolutely no problem with guys showing their emotions. In fact, I wish more people would do it. Fishing doesn't have to be so stuffy. We're not on a golf course. We're not in a library. You're in a heated competition for $100,000 where you go hours at a time with no success. So of course, sometimes these guys are going to get jacked up when they have these really special moments. So when Ike is on my screen catching tanks and screaming so loud that, he's peaking the audio levels in my earbuds, I feel like all is right in the world. All right, let's get to our next topic here. It's going to be
Tactical Bassin.
I think Tactical Bassin has probably taught more people about fishing and gear than almost any other content creator in the past 10 years. And I mean that. Now, some people are going to criticize them for being a little too salesy with some of their videos and gear as of late. And I feel that way too sometimes, not just about Tactical Bassin, but a lot of content creators nowadays. But I also understand that it's part of their job. People like Matt and Tim, they are able to put the amount of YouTube videos out that they do because they're able to do it full time, and that in turn is because they're able to have a full-time job doing this because of fruitful partnerships and selling products. So I get it. But the one thing that I do want to say is that those boys work at it. I had the pleasure, this was again probably a couple weeks ago because it was at iCast. I got to sit down with Matt and Tim for probably 2 hours at the State of the Industry breakfast. We were all at the same table, and I had no idea that they completely edit their own videos. They don't hire anybody. All the filming and editing and everything is done by Matt and Tim. So I assumed they had some sort of team helping them out by now, but nope. They said they're still bootstrapping it and doing it all themselves, which I think is cool because we're obviously kind of doing the same thing here at Tackle Talk. I do everything myself. So I respect the heck out of the boys for the grind that they're on and have been on for years. All right, next topic here we're going to go to is
PFDs.
PFDs. Okay, you should wear them. Please wear them. I know they're annoying sometimes. I know they can be cumbersome, but if they are, that probably means you just don't have the right one. There are inflatable PFDs nowadays that you don't even realize you have on half the time, so just save up and get one of those. $100 or $200 is a very small price to pay for potentially saving your life down the road. They even have PFDs now that just clip around your waist like a fanny pack so they don't impede your casting or your fishing or anything like that. So there's absolutely no reason nowadays not to have a PFD with you and not to wear one. All right, next topic here is going to be
bearings.
Okay, I'm just going to say here that don't let the number of bearings fool you into thinking a reel is smoother than another reel. When I was little, when we would go to Walmart and look at all of the reels and the blister packs on the wall, and me and my buddies, we'd ride our bikes there and look at it and dream of buying the spinning reel someday, we would look at bearing count, and that was how we decided if a reel was good or not. We'd be like, dude, this one has 9 bearings, this one has 8 bearings, this one has 10 bearings, this one's got to be sick. I'm going to save an extra $20 and buy this one. Well, now we know that that's not the case, right? Quality of bearings matters, and the way the reel is built matters, and the number of bearings can be deceiving. So if you see a $30 spinning reel nowadays advertised on Facebook that has, 127 bazillion bearings in it, and then you have a $99 Shimano reel that has 6 in it, I can still guarantee you that Shimano reel is probably going to run smoother than that, whatever it really is, right? 14 or 15 bearing Facebook reel that you saw. Don't let the bearing count fool you. Feel the reel for yourself if you can, but quality of build and quality of components matters nowadays so much more than just bearing count. All right, let's keep it moving here. What's our next topic?
Underrated.
Okay, that's pretty open-ended. I'm going to go with things that I think are underrated. I'm just going to list some here for you. When I think of underrated right now, I'm going to say Sunline SX1 braid. I'm going to say the new Shimano Caius that came out at iCast that almost nobody talked about, a great reel in that like $69 price point for a casting reel, something that more people should be looking at. Black Fury MEP spinners, very underrated, something that people sleep on all the time, one of the best fish catchers of all time. Rapala skitter pops and skitter props, go look those up. Eco Pro swing shads. What else? Let's go like Zoom boot tail flukes. Bass Pro Shops tender tubes. Let's go one more here. How about Yum thumping dingers? So there's some for you guys to look up and maybe try. Next topic here we've got is going to be
Crocs.
Okay, I love Crocs. I own 3 pairs of Crocs, one of which is even a camo fuzzy slipper pair of Crocs. You can make fun of me all you want. They're very comfortable and they're awesome. But the one thing that you don't want to do is use them for wading shoes. I know they're very convenient. They could be a great thing for you to just slip on and go in the creek or whatever. But at least around here, you don't want to do that because of leeches. I will never forget, this is maybe 4 years ago, me and my buddy Jeff, we were wading up a creek and we waded all day, probably 8-9 hours in the creek. I was wearing my normal wading shoes. He was wearing some generic Crocs type deal that he had. Well, when we got to the gas station afterwards, we hopped out of the creek, went to the Walmart gas station to fill up, and while we were outside of the truck, I remember looking down and he had probably 4 or 5 leeches on his feet that he actually had to pull off one by one, blood and all kinds of stuff right there. It was absolutely disgusting. I get like the hair on the back of my neck standing up just thinking about it. It was so gross. So let that be a warning to you. Don't wear open-toed shoes when you're wading, especially if you've got a lot of leeches and stuff around. It's just a recipe for some gross stuff in your feet. Just get closed-toed shoes. Get like a cheap pair of wading boots off Amazon, and you'll be good to go. Okay, let's take one more here to close us out. Chatbot, give me one final topic here.
YouTubers.
Ooh, okay, so first off, I respect the hustle of YouTubers. I know it's tough work, editing sucks, but I could just never do it and be a true fishing YouTuber. One, because of what we talked about earlier. I'm not showing you my water, I'm not showing you where I fish, I am not giving the internet my fishing spots, and 2, because it completely takes away from my enjoyment of fishing to me. So I want to be fully immersed in the activity of fishing. That's all I want to think about. I don't want to worry about GoPros, or memory or battery levels, or if my audio is okay. I don't want to narrate what I'm doing out there on the water, worry about camera angles, all that kind of stuff. I just want to fish. I don't want to do any of that other stuff. I don't want there to be a camera on me. I don't want to worry about the angle that, it's seeing, or maybe I'm trying to look cooler or cast different or whatever. Again, I just want to fish. Not everything in life, I think anyway, has to be documented for the world to see. I know that we live in that day and age where everything needs proof. You need to upload it to Instagram or YouTube or whatever. I don't think that's the case. Fishing is my time. It's what I love to do. And when I'm out there, it is between me and nature. And if I'm with a buddy, sharing those memories with a buddy. So again, kudos to the folks that do it, right? And providing a lot of entertainment to people. It's hard work building and growing a channel. But again, it's just not for me. All right, everybody, that is today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed that, a little different take on a Tackle Talk episode. Again, shoot me a message. Let me know if you like this idea or don't like this idea. It was just an idea I had when I was watching some stand-up stuff, and I thought, you know what? We could probably do something sort of similar for a Tackle Talk episode and just go really open-ended with a lot of different topics. So shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook, shoot me an email, tackletalkpodcast@gmail.com. Again, you can find us on the web, tackletalkpodcast.com. There you can submit your own mailbag questions. We also have a store on the website if you want to pick up a hat or shirt or decals or tumblers or anything like that. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you all a ton, and we will see you right back here next Tuesday for another brand new episode of Tackle Talk.